Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. Cohen, there is so much I want to ask you. I understand that you are not talking about the trial. You've made that very clear. You're not a criminal defendant in this case. You are a subpoenaed witness. And so there's nothing that was formally restricting you, but you made that decision. You posted it a few weeks ago. Every one of these episodes, we've not talked about it. We've talked about other topics. Obviously makes the show more difficult, but like, so what? I mean, I appreciate that you understand.
Well, the severity, the severity that's associated with my conversation on anything to do with the defendant or the trial. And so I have made a pledge to Judge Merchan, to the American people, to the prosecutors, that I was going to refrain. And so, Ben, one of the things that I would like to suggest is let's handle together with the brigaders other issues that are ongoing and pressing as well, like what we're seeing going on college campuses all around the country, about the insanity of Kristi Noem. We can talk about a handful of other things. And then what I think that I'm going to do is I'm going to drop off, because I don't think it's fair that the brigaders don't get the full effect of the beatdown. And I have all the confidence in the world that you could continue the conversation without me on it. But I don't think that because of my restriction, my self-imposed restriction, that the brigaders should not be brought up to speed based upon your observations as not only a lawyer, but also a co-host here on Political Beatdown. So I think that's the smartest move for me and for everybody.
Cohen, can I ask you this, though? And it's not directly on the trial. And if you can't answer it, it's fine, which is just, how are you doing kind of, from at a mental level, your health, your wellness? How are you doing? I mean, look, I'm not going to talk about anything that went down, but like, you must know that you are being talked about. You must know that if you turn on any type of TV, even though you try to avoid it, if you turn on any type of news, you're going to see your face. Inevitably, you're going to hear things that are not true, or that you take exception with, and you can't say anything about it at all. So I don't want you to talk about him. I don't want you to talk about the proceedings, but I think the brigaders, who all stand with you here and watch you here, just want to know how you're doing and how you're feeling, one, and two, if you have any indication yet. I don't know if you can even share about when you may be testifying, if you have any indication.
I have no idea. They are really not to my happy, to my happiness either. They have not even given me an idea in terms of when I'm due to take this stand. And I suspect that they have their reasons for it. I am trying so hard not to turn on the television or do any of that. As been watching everything else in the world that I possibly can. However, I will flip back and forth, and if I see it has to do with me, I flip off. But if I see what's going on, like with the schools, that was a big topic yesterday. I was very curious to see how the police were going to handle the UCLA scenario. I was curious to see how the police were handling Fordham University, Tulane. I mean, I have friends whose children are at these various schools, and I'm just, for my own, personal knowledge, I'm curious to see that. I'll watch. And if it's not then I'm really watching a ton of like Court Cam or Below Deck or some of these sort of ridiculous, stupid shows. I've basically seen everything that there is, as far as I'm concerned, worthwhile of seeing on the streaming services. However, I can't tell you the number of journalists that keep trying to reach out. They'll send a text message, that pops up, and unfortunately, because it pops up on your screen, it'll show the question without having to open the phone. And once I turn around and start saying, I just fucking delete it. I don't want it. I'm not responding to anybody. What I realize is that it's a couple of more weeks before which I suspect I will be taking the stand at the latest, right? Like, I don't think that this whole trial is going to extend more than maybe another month. So that's the time period that I have to accept that I really need to just go dark and stay dark for the benefit of the case, the prosecutors, even the defendant, believe it or not. The less that I'm involved right now, the better off it'll be, I believe, for me, for the case, and so on. How am I feeling? Blood pressure still too high. With all the meds that I'm taking, I get aggravated, from this whole thing. When you're basically sitting around and friends will call and they'll say, oh my God, I can't believe it. I don't want to hear. My own folks will call and say, what the hell is this guy saying? I'm like, Ma, Pop, I don't even want to know, and it's like, it's that sort of not knowing, but not knowing what you're supposed to know. That's sort of irritating and getting me, angered. And so rising, the raising of the blood pressure, but yeah,
I know you used to be a boxer too back in the day when in college and in other days. You may be like a featherweight right now. I say that half jokingly but half serious. You look incredibly skinny, and a lot of people comment, it looks like you probably have lost like 30 pounds since
26 to be exact. There are people who are stress eaters, and then there are people who are stress fasters, and I'm so angered over all of this. I'm so annoyed that any time that I'm eating, it's you get stomach pains, and you get all the associated discomfort that comes from trying to trying to eat a burger would absolutely send me into a Montezuma's Revenge. It's terrible. I'm just saying, it's terrible. It's like you feel like you want to regurgitate every time you eat. And so, you eat very small, and then your body goes, I guess, into ketosis. And then, so far, all I've eaten today, believe it or not, is some tea and some blueberries. That's what I had at 7:00 in the morning.
Yeah, and it's now 5:00 East Coast time. So and that's all you've eaten for the day.
Yeah.
So Cohen, let's chat also though about other developments that have been taking place today, or in the past 24 hours, that are not related to those proceedings, but I think are important things that we need to talk about. In a bit, I want to talk about President Biden's statements that he made from the White House. But let's just take a look yesterday at what Kristi Noem said. You gave her the two-finger salute back on Tuesday.
And rightfully so.
And so she went on Hannity, who's basically become the senior crisis management director for all things MAGA. He was trying to help her out here. And he was basically saying, look, Kristi Noem, maybe people are just unfairly upset because you shot him in the head and didn't murder him in some other way. To which Kristi Noem responds that actually what this is really about is the fake media. And this is the fake media's fault. And the fake media is lying to the American people. Here, watch this.
Tell us, in your words, why it came to that decision. I mean, unfortunately, dogs that are violent sometimes have to be put down. But I guess people, because you shot the dog, said, is there a difference which way you put a dog down? I'm not really sure, but I don't think people understood it. I want to give you a chance to explain.
Well, Sean, you know how the fake news works. They leave out some or most of the facts of a story. They put the worst spin on it. And that's what's happened in this case. I hope people really do buy this book and they find out the truth of this story, because the truth of this story is that this was a working dog and it was not a puppy. It was a dog that was extremely dangerous. It had come to us from a family who had found her way too aggressive. We were her second chance, and she the day she was put down was a day that she massacred livestock that were part of our neighbors. She attacked me, and it was a hard decision. And the reason it's in the book is because this book is filled with tough, challenging decisions that I've had to make throughout my life. And
you know, there's so much I'm sick and tired of, Cohen, but I'm so sick and tired of that shtick.
They start off, right? Then they start off with this horse shit. Well, you know, Sean, the fake news, right? You know, fake news. All of a sudden, the dog is a working dog, which means that the dog is less than a house dog, right? That it's still not a 13-month-old dog, which, as far as I'm concerned, is still a puppy, right? So, in other words, if it was a toy poodle, then it would be treated differently by her than a working dog, and that the dog maybe attacked some livestock or anything like that. If you have to put a dog down for whatever the reason may be, right? The proper way to do it is you take it to a veterinarian and they do it in a humane manner. You don't take the dog, throw it in a ditch and shoot it, right? I mean, there is no justification for the statements that she made other than to say, oh, it's fake news, Sean, that the fake news outlets are only talking about certain parts of her, which she acknowledges, shooting a 13-month-old dog. But the only way that you're going to find out the truth is you got to buy the book. Sure, Kristi. Sure.
Here's another part of that
interview right away.
Here's another part of that interview where she says, this is just what we do in rural America. Like, people don't get it. This is just how we deal with dogs in rural America. Here, play this clip.
And that was the situation that we were dealing with. And I'm a dog lover. I've trained dogs for years. I've been around hundreds of them, of course. And so this was a tough situation and very difficult. But that's what happens in rural America many times. And
that's not what happens in rural America many times. And stop claiming that that's rural America and that's what Americans are supposed to be. It's just enough. Americans crave normalcy. I crave normalcy. We, the Brigaders, crave normalcy. And Cohen, I just want to go back to things where it's okay that we disagree with the other side on things. We have to make deals. We have to forge compromises. We have to make government work. And we have to just stop this oddity, this strange behavior that's coming from MAGA. Like, let me show you this one. This was at an event in Michigan. I'm not going to go over other clips of other potential speakers at this, but let me show you this one right here. This is from Tudor Dixon, who was running for governor. She's a MAGA Republican. She lost to Gretchen Whitmer. And again, I'm not showing any of the other clips, just to be clear, from Michigan, just this one. Because again, I just want to show you like the cruelty, the depths of depravity here. Play this clip. This is MAGA Republican Tudor Dixon, who lost to Gretchen Whitmer in 2022 by 10 points. And here's what she said at an event yesterday. Let's play the clip.
I don't know if you saw the latest video where she talks about nicknames. She has a bunch of different nicknames. She left one out. Did you notice that? You know the nickname I'm talking about? Stretchin' Gretchen? Just between us girls, when you're campaigning, you hear a lot of stuff you normally wouldn't hear. And one of our legislators told me that Lee Chatfield was actually pretty familiar with that name. I guess I can't accuse her of being nonpartisan or not bipartisan anymore, huh? She is bipartisan, apparently.
I mean,
look, first of all, the fact that she's up on a podium for a position in politics, making statements like that, it's to me, it reminds me of that movie Mean Girls, where they're just saying stuff. I mean, I don't even know how to describe the level of ignorance and stupidity that emanates from these people's mouths. But, before we jump off onto the topic, Ben, I wanted just to go back about Kristi Noem for a second, because we're fortunate through Political Beatdown, through our brigaders, that we actually have quite a few followers here that are from rural America. I am not, right? I am not. I live in Manhattan. I've lived in the city now for 40 years, give or take. We have enough people here that are saying, I live in rural America, and we do not throw our puppies into a ditch and shoot them, working animals or not. And so I just find it so disgusting that when they speak in these glorified, sort of generalized terms. Oh, well, that's how it happens in rural America, right? And the fact is, like, a Sean Hannity who does not live in rural America, right? And I don't think he ever has lived in rural America, can turn around and say, yeah, Kristi, I got to be honest with you. I've never lived in rural America, but I have a lot of friends that have, and I've never heard of them turning around and telling a story quite like this. So she's somehow thinking that by being making these global type of statements, that she gets a pass because she's really speaking to a more urban group of listeners.
And then trying to sell books. If you really want to know about it, you got to go and buy my book. But going back to Tudor Dixon, though, and what she said about the governor of Michigan, a very popular governor, Gretchen Whitmer. You know how Governor Whitmer, one of the big moments in her career before being a governor, she was a state senator. And one of the big issues that she was fighting for were women's reproductive rights. And there was a moment when Governor Whitmer was a state senator in 2013. And this was like viral before there was really the term viral. I mean, I guess there was a little bit in 2013, but heck, Ubers really weren't even available back then. But this was the speech that she gave in 2013. Now, Cohen, people in Michigan know this about Governor Whitmer's background and her career, what I'm about to show you. Tudor Dixon knew that before making these types of statements about her. Let me just show this moment to you. This is State Senator Governor Whitmer before she was the governor. Senator Whitmer. Here's what she said, fighting for women's reproductive rights back in 2013. This clip.
And I started to think about that, and I thought, I can't push one of my colleagues to share a tough story if I'm not brave enough to share one of my own. And so I'm about to tell you something that I've not shared with many people in my life. But over 20 years ago, I was a victim of rape. And thank God it didn't result in a pregnancy. Because I can't imagine going through what I went through and then having to consider what to do about an unwanted pregnancy from an attacker. And as a mother with 2 girls, the thought that they would ever go through something like I did keeps me up at night. I thought this was all behind me. You know how tough I can be. The thought and the memory of that still haunts me. If this were law then, and I had become pregnant, I would not be able to have coverage because of this. How extreme does this measure need to be? I'm not the only woman in our state that has faced that horrible circumstance. I am not enjoying talking about it. It's something I've hidden for a long time.
She's a warrior. She's a warrior. She is a survivor, and she's brave. And anybody who makes a derogatory or a nasty comment about a woman who has gone through what she has gone through, and sadly, too many women are the victims of sexual assault, they're the ones that should be thrown into a fucking ditch, not cricket. Shame on her for turning around and for attacking Governor Whitmer. Shame on her. All right? Shame on Tudor for going ahead and trying to poke fun at a woman who has suffered at the hands of a man who did the most disgusting thing that you can do, an act as disgusting as what he did, rape. No, Tudor. Nope. Unfortunately, the most that I can do at this point is express my opinions and to give to somebody like Tudor Dixon the 2 fucking finger salute, you piece of shit. Fucking garbage. Animal.
No, when I watched that, I was
just an animal. To make fun of somebody who's gone through what let me tell you, Gretchen Whitmer is a warrior. She is strong. She is brave, and she should be honored, not ostracized.
Yeah, look, the
not
person,
by somebody with the integrity of a Tudor Dixon,
and the person who Governor Whitmer was talking about in 2013 was different than who Tudor Dixon was making the implication about. That was disgusting. It in no way changes what Tudor Dixon was saying, making this accusation, saying these horrible things and rumors and innuendo, just horrific things to say about anyone, any women. And it's just disgusting stuff at that event. But just knowing the background of Governor Whitmer, and Governor Whitmer, I don't believe ever shared the identity of who assaulted her, but she shared that story. And Governor Whitmer throughout her career, though, has been someone who's consistently been consistent, fighting for women's reproductive rights, fighting for the freedoms of people. You saw her there in 2013. No gimmicks, no Lauren Boebert stuff or Matt Gaetz stuff or Jim Jordan stuff or none of that. It's just politics is about we the people, right, Michael Cohen? Politics is about, I want to hear from politicians, what are they going to do for this country?
And Governor Whitmer, it's not just that she's fighting for women's reproductive rights and women's rights, which she is, and good for her. It's, in fact, male or female. Governors or members of Congress or senators, they should be fighting for equal rights for women in terms of pay, in terms of everything. And the fact that she's fighting for women's reproductive rights, good for her. But she's fighting for all Michiganders. She's fighting for the state. She's trying to do what needs to be done in that state, including Republicans, including independents, for her, fellow Democrats. She's everything that you want out of a governor or a politician. She's courageous. She's brave. She's honest. She's loyal. She's hardworking. She's, for God's sakes, and to attack her on something like this, my God, Tudor Dixon needs a fucking therapist.
Absolutely. Michael Cohen, when we come back, I want to show you some of these clips from earlier in the day of President Biden's statements. I want to get your response on that. And then I want to be able to talk about certain things that you're likely not able to talk about. But let's come back. Cohen, I just so appreciate you sharing with us and opening up just about how you're doing.
I wish I could share more.
I know.
It's frustrating to me that I can't, because our brigaders know. Our brigaders know, they enjoy our conversation, Ben, because we have a perspective that's, let's just say, quite different than
the other perspective. Let's go. We'll take it.
Right?
There's no doubt about it. And look, our perspective, though, and one of the things that we talk about is this is a movement. It's not just a network, right? The community that's here right now, we're nothing without the community that's here right now. And so we're so grateful for all of you. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you heard of cancer-fighting foods? The American Cancer Society discovered that diets rich in fruits and vegetables may actually lower your risk of cancer. Hopefully you hear this and you run to the store for 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. If not, you should consider adding Field of Greens to your daily health regimen. Each fruit and veggie in Field of Greens was doctor selected for studied health benefits. Now, there's a heart health group, lungs group, kidneys, and metabolism group, even healthy weight. What your body needs is in each scoop of delicious Field of Greens. Will Field of Greens prevent, treat, or cure cancer? The answer is no, but it's so powerful that it promises at your next checkup that your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Did you hear that? Your money back. It's either the doctor notices your improved health or your money back. I got you 15% off and free rush shipping. So visit right now, fieldofgreens.com, and use promo code BEAT for your discount. That's promo code BEAT, B-E-A-T, at fieldofgreens.com. That's fieldofgreens.com/beat.
If you're like me, you understand the pains of finding out what to wear. Let's face it, most clothes are uncomfortable or too tight or never actually the size that you really are, and not to mention the annoyance of trying to put together a good outfit. And when you finally do have a good fit, you can only wear it for a few hours before you have an important meeting or dinner, and then you have to change. Everyone wants to dress their best and look good at all times because, frankly, it's a confidence booster. So here's the deal. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man. And here's why. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone commuter collection. Rhone's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. It's that easy. With the Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I absolutely love Rhone. This has truly become my go-to commuter fit. We're on the move a lot, whether it's jumping from meeting to meeting or catching a flight or an important dinner. The Rhone commuter collection has never let me down. The versatility and overall comfort of the collection is undefeated. And even after I wear it all day, I still feel super fresh because of that Gold Fusion anti-odor technology. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. So right now, head to Rhone.com/Cohen, that's C-O-H-E-N, and use promo code Cohen to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/Cohen, C-O-H-E-N, and use code Cohen. It's time to find your corner office. And now, back to the video.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown. Ben Meiselas and Michael Cohen here. Thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors. The discount codes are in the description below.
Ben, have you tried the Field of Greens? Which is different. I got to tell you, the strawberry lemonade one, right? It's really tasty. It's it's good. I would go downstairs, take a nice little walk through the park or something, and they gave you a nice little bottle and so on, and you keep it cold with some ice cubes. It's really refreshing. I liked it, and they're healthy and no calories.
Whenever we have our
Maybe I need
sponsors,
the calories now.
whenever we have our sponsors, I know you always want to test it out and try it and be involved in the process with Jordy, which is what I love. All right, let's take a look, though, at what President Biden said earlier in the day in the White House. He spoke to the American public about the protests that are happening on campus, and President Biden spoke about how peaceful protests are part of the American way and how peaceful protests are important. Dissent is okay. We're not an authoritarian regime. But when peaceful protests become violent, when it becomes trespass, President Biden said that's not okay and that's not acceptable. So here's the first clip I want to show you, Cohen, of President Biden from earlier in the day. Let's play it.
Make no mistake, as president, I will always defend free speech, and I will always be just as strong in standing up for the rule of law. That's my responsibility to you, the American people, my obligation to the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Mr. President,
and you see, Cohen, even as I showed you that.
I was going to say, even that you show the thing on the side.
I did it. Showed it on the side because you're all over. So I won't show any more of. I won't show any more of it. But
way to go, Salty.
No, that was I was the one who. I was the one who.
I don't care.
I was the one who.
I don't.
So ignore what was on the side. Just talk about. We know what President Biden said. So I won't show you more of the clips because your name will probably come up on anything. So tell us though.
You can't make stuff like this up.
I can't make stuff like this up. No matter what, I can't avoid you in any other location. But walk us in all seriousness, though. President Biden. Let me just read to you what it is that he said, and that was my fault. I was the one who sent those clips, and I didn't realize that there's like a flash.
That's all right. It doesn't matter.
Here's what it says. President Biden says, as president, I will always defend for free speech. I will always be just as strong in standing up for the rule of law. That's my responsibility to you, the American people, my obligation to the Constitution. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent in peaceful protest in the best tradition of how Americans respond to controversial issues. But neither are we a lawless country. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it is anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It is simply wrong. Very presidential. I think it was important that he addressed what was taking place. Cohen, what's your perspective? And look, I want to remind everybody too that your parents are Holocaust survivors.
My
right?
father, not my
father's
mom.
a Holocaust survivor. And when you and I have always talked about, these issues, I've always been knowing that as your background. I've always been moved, though, by actually how kind of nuanced and surgical you are in discussing what's taking place. It actually, I don't want to say it surprised me because I actually think you are a very kind of nuanced and very intelligent person, but you have a very nuanced perspective here. So maybe share it. Well,
look, I agree with President Biden, and I'm beginning to take a tremendous amount of offense about people who I know that everybody wants to sort of, talk to me about their political ideology. It's amazing. I mean, friends will call if I'm out walking and I'll bump into somebody. They always want to get, because politics right now is completely immersed our lives day to day. And while I appreciate people's points of view, it needs to be like what we only offer here on Beatdown, or only what you're going to get with the Midas Touch Network, or of course on my Mea Culpa podcast. Nothing but the truth. No innuendo, just pure facts. So I started to hear shit like everything was being done peacefully until the police showed up. And I take offense to it because attacks upon the blue is so, to me, it's so low right? When you need a police officer, rest assured, you're so thankful that they're there. They didn't just walk onto the campus of whether it was Columbia or Fordham. They were called there by the administration. And there's a distinction between the two, one being a state school, the other being a private school. Nevertheless, both schools reached out to the police. For example, they took over Hamilton Hall. And these police officers, right? God bless them for doing what they did. Nobody got killed. Nobody got beaten up. Yeah, people got arrested. They ended up using the system that was, it was like a lift that brought them to a window. A guy jimmied open a window, and one by one, methodically, they went in, and they took back Hamilton Hall. The same thing with the decampment of what was going on over at Fordham. This nonsense has to stop. It's one thing, and the many now of the university presidents or chancellors, many of them have said the same thing. We respect our students' rights, our students' First Amendment rights to protest. However, there are rules and regulations of the school. You want to go ahead and you want to sleep out in the quad? Knock yourself out. Can you build structures and encampments? I don't think so. Can you go and occupy a building? The answer is no. Whether that building is in use or under construction, you cannot. It's a violation of the rules of the school. And so as a result, there are now thousands across the country who are suspended, expelled. Could you imagine if you get expelled, especially from some of these Ivy League schools, right, where they work so hard throughout junior high and high school to achieve going to the best schools that the United States of America has to offer? Can you imagine? They're expelled. They lose all their credits. They're still going to owe whatever money that they're going to owe. And name another school that's willing to take them. Not to mention their names. They get records that follow them forever and ever. And it's only because of the rhetoric and the things that they're doing. For example, they have no right to impose their opinions on somebody else. If there is a Jewish student or a teacher, did you hear the story about the professor who was needed to get to the building, his building, and he was tackled by a protester, which knocked his earbud out, pulled him to the ground, and harmed him. Now, he knows exactly who the person is because that person picked up the earbud. And as you know, earbuds have trackers on them because it's from Apple. So, he knew who they were. Police decided not to do anything, leave it be. But all of those demonstrators, all of them have been removed and they have been arrested, and they are now going to suffer the consequences as if they violated some other crime other than, for example, sleeping out in a quad or protesting. It's the fact that it was a non-peaceful, that they attacked people, that they started, with the anti-Semitism. By the way, the mistake that they're making is that when you start with anti-Semitic tropes, understand what you're doing is you're also enforcing the right for Islamophobia, which also should never, ever occur. I mean, it's what's going on these schools. Most of them don't even know what the hell they're protesting. It's almost like they're doing it for fucking Instagram or TikTok or live streaming. They have no idea what they're talking about. In fact, there was one young lady that was approached by an interviewer, and she's a member of the LGBTQ plus community, holding a sign that says LGBTQ plus community for Palestine. That's okay. But the interviewer said to her, "Are you aware that if you actually held this sign in Gaza, that Hamas would beat you to death with a rock, they would stone you to death. And she, of course, had no comment and so on. Well, I'm not in Gaza. I understand that. But shouldn't one thing sort of equate with another if in fact you're protesting for a cause? That's, again, my 2 cents on it. I'm very disappointed in many of these protesters, other than the explanation that a lot of this is being funded by outside sources, and that they have now proven.
I feel strongly that people should peacefully protest. I understand from peaceful protesters who articulate the concerns about the way Israel's handled the war. I understand those concerns.
There's a lot of people. I'm so sorry, Ben, not to interrupt, because a lot of our brigaders saying, Hamas is not Palestine. I was the first in this conversation to say that. Right.
Absolutely.
First of all, I have friends who are Palestinian. I love them with all my heart. I see them. My kids are friends with their kids. My wife is friends with their wife, and I've been friendly with her since 1984. And her husband, he's my college friend since '84. My heart goes out to the civilians of Palestine, not to Hamas. So I don't want anybody to think for a second that I'm equating Hamas with Palestine. Absolutely not.
And one of the things too, as the cultures are actually very intertwined, Palestinian, Israeli, in terms of food and culture and things like that, I always think about that if it wasn't for kind of leadership that often co-opts the people, and there's a broader discussion to have, not on this episode, there's nothing more than I think, an Israeli and a Palestinian would love to do than share some coffee or tea or a falafel, go to the same restaurants together and spread and share love. The people love each other. People want love and connection. And it's why leadership is so important, because it is leaders who often rip us apart, divide us against each other. And I think it's so important that there's leadership that brings us together and recognizes our shared humanity and our shared dignity. And I think that's important in all situations. Cohen, I want to thank you.
Ben, before I go, I just want to show some of the brigaders something that I regularly post. All right. Photos like this. All right. Photos just like this. I'm the guy who's out there protesting. Under no circumstance do I believe that Israelis and Palestinians, who are Semitic cousins, they have the same DNA if you trace it back to Abraham, that they should be fighting with one another. And I think, and I really believe this, how great would it be to see Israeli students and Palestinian students joining forces and combining here in America to show what's going on in the Middle East, that the right way for us to exist is to coexist and to love one another, respect one another, and to stop the senseless death that's going on. I also believe that the Israeli students and the Palestinian students should be calling for Hamas to give up, lay down their arms, and return all the hostages. Plain and simple. That would be a message that the whole world would be able to get behind.
Cohen, who gets the 2-finger salute?
We already gave it to her, to Dixon.
Cohen, thank you. Let me speak briefly with the brigaders while you're not here on a few topics that I don't want to discuss with you on here, and I'll be very brief. Thank you, Michael Cohen. We appreciate you as always. Michael Cohen, everybody. And I think it is important in our coverage, though, that we address the protest here. We shouldn't ignore it. But I also think it's important that we don't do it the way the media is doing it, putting people into sides, right? That's how they deal with our politics. You're this, you're that, fight each other. You're this, you're that, fight each other. The types of conversations that I want to facilitate on this network are what can we do to try to reach solutions? How do we show respect for each other's cultures? Where can we bridge the gaps? And how do we actually solve these issues versus highlighting this camp is against this camp and this name and that name. I want to talk about the fact that, we should all love each other, and left to our own vices, we would get along with each other. We would have meals with each other. We would party with each other. We would hang out with each other. We would marry. We would do that. There wouldn't be those divisions. We would make family. There would be so many things that we can do, but often leaders want to pit us against each other. And of course, there's so many layers of historical complexity here. But as we try to change the way media reports, I always want to emphasize basic principles, always. Humanity, love, bringing people together. And the photo that Cohen showed of the Palestinian child with an Israeli child, that's what I want to highlight. I want to highlight what we can do to love each other. And I'll stop preaching, but that's what's really important here. Let me just, now that Cohen's gone, let me just show you a few things that I know I can't show while he's on here, but I want to just provide you with updates. So after proceedings ended today, there was a really significant moment where Donald Trump stated that he's not allowed to testify because of the gag order. So he's making the excuse why he can't testify. Let me show it to you and then let's chat. Let's play it.
What do you think about the candidates in testifying?
Well, I'm not allowed to testify. I'm under a gag order. I guess. I can't even testify on that. Now, we're going to be appealing the gag order. I'd love to answer that question. It's a very easy question, the easiest question so far. But I'm not allowed to testify because this judge, who's totally conflicted, has me under an unconstitutional gag order. Nobody's ever had that before. And we don't like it, and it's not fair. Other people are allowed to do whatever they want to us, and I'm not allowed as a presidential candidate, the leading candidate, the Republican Party nominee, and the one who's leading Biden by a lot. I'm not allowed to talk. There's never been any abuse like this before. This conflicted judge ought to get out of this case. He should not be having this case. He gives us nothing. It's such a rigged court. So I'm not allowed to testify because of an unconstitutional gag order. We're appealing the gag order, and let's see what happens. Thank you very much.
You saw Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, there. Trump looked at him. Then Trump's lawyer shook his head like, yeah, you can't testify. That's going to become a major issue, folks, at this criminal trial. I think Justice Merchan is going to have to address now whether or not there is ineffective assistance of counsel and whether Donald Trump is trying to tee that up for a potential appeal, saying that he was getting bad advice from his lawyer, trying to throw his lawyer under the bus right there. So I think the prosecution is now duty bound to bring this up to Justice Merchan and to say, look, there was this press conference that was held and Donald Trump's lawyer shook his head and said Trump is not allowed to testify. You have to inform him that, of course, he's allowed to testify, that the gag order has nothing to do with that. The gag order just says he can't threaten or attack witnesses. He can't threaten or attack family members of the district attorney's office, that he can't threaten or attack the jurors or make statements about jurors. That's it. And by the way, you shouldn't need a gag order to have to say that. That's just what exists. Those are usually just simply the terms and conditions of release when a criminal case is filed. The fact that that even has to be stated is such a wild and unprecedented kind of aspect of this whole thing. So I think that needs to be addressed tomorrow in court. We'll see if that is addressed because Trump's absolutely allowed to testify. You'll recall Trump said he was going to testify. He has a whole history of doing this, saying, I'm going to testify, I'm going to testify, I'm going to testify. And then he comes up with some excuse with the E. Jean Carroll case. He went to Scotland and Ireland at first when it came to the New York Attorney General civil fraud case. They said he would testify on direct exam. Then he was like, it's rigged. I'm not going to do that. He said he would testify before the January 6th committee and then filed a lawsuit to block his testimony. That's just what he does. But it's an important issue that the prosecution has to address now because Trump's lawyer is now on video shaking his head yes, that Trump is prohibited from testifying, which is 100% false. Wanted to address that. Trump also has been sending emails out like this since today's proceedings. They'd cut my tongue out if they could. They'd cut my tongue out if they could. That's what he's sending to his supporters, apparently, to raise money. And then he also posted this on his social media. Contrary to the fake news media, I don't fall asleep during the crooked DA's witch hunt, especially not today. I simply close my beautiful blue eyes sometimes, listen intensely, and take it all. And he puts all in caps in. I think he means intently, not intensely. And then you had Keith Davidson testify today. Keith Davidson is the lawyer for Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. That was Trump sleeping in court by some sketch artists. We've heard from numerous reporters. Keith Davidson's testimony was just absolutely brutal against Donald Trump. And Davidson basically laid out all of the communications that he had. And we did a deeper dive with Karen Friedman Agnifilo that's on the live feed right now. So I would suggest go to the live feed, watch Karen Friedman Agnifilo and my breakdown of everything that happened today, where she breaks it down. She also started the unit at the district attorney's office where one of the witnesses who was called to the stand and testified is a part of the unit that Karen Friedman Agnifilo and Cy Vance, when he was the district attorney, created together. I mean, you can't get any better analysis than Karen Friedman Agnifilo here. So it's such an honor to do this with her as well. So thank you everybody for watching this. I, of course, I'm grateful and I respect Michael Cohen's decision not to talk about any of this. I even didn't want to go into it in a lot of detail on this show, even with him not here anymore. I respect that. It's not something he had to do, but I think he understands, the moment right now. I appreciate that. But on the Brother Show this evening, we'll be able to discuss it. That's at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Make sure you tune in for the live right here on the Midas Touch Network. When I do the show with me and my brothers, the Midas Touch podcast, that starts at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific live here on the Midas Touch Network. Make sure you hit subscribe. You may think that you're subscribed here, but you may not actually be subscribed. It's free to subscribe, so just hit the subscribe button. If you want to check out some of our pro-democracy sponsors, you'll see the discount codes in the description below. You can check that out right there. Make sure you subscribe to the Mea Culpa podcast, Mea Culpa Blue, not the red. Subscribe to that podcast, which is hosted by Michael Cohen. And make sure you're subscribed on audio, not just to Mea Culpa, but to Political Beatdown as well. It's free to subscribe to these podcasts. You just search Mea Culpa, then separately search Political Beatdown, then hit subscribe, and then you will get this to your audio devices as well. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching this. And we're really grateful for you. We really appreciate you. One of the things that's, again, just so important for me about this network is doing what other networks never did before. I really want to focus on our shared humanity. I really want to find ways to bring us together and to not divide us in all aspects. And I know it's a lofty goal. I know it's hard, but that's what I want to devote my life's mission to in creating this media network. And I hope you'll join me in that, as difficult as it may be. We're in this together. Thanks for watching. Shout out to the Brigaders and shout out to the Midas Mighty.